There's nothing you have to do here to prove your worth or your value. And we have a lot of conditioning that might tell us otherwise. And I think it's it's a great service to ourself. It's an act of self-love to question all of that and to be that really loving, nurturing parent to ourselves. Like, I love saying this to my clients. Like, if your 3-year old self, if you don't have a 3-year old, but if your 3-year old self said, I want to go sing, you would be like, go sing. You're amazing. Go sing. Let me help you find a place to sing. Let's go sing. And when I could just shift over to be like, what does my heart want to share? What is my soul here to express? Like, how do I want to make a difference? My God, I feel like I'm tapping into the true self, the essential nature that again is just that source of like the fireworks and the beautiful rainbows of light. And I do feel like that's on offer for all of us, but it might be like this conscious, for me it was this conscious shifting out of this misidentification process and of identifying with this idea of brokenness or needing fixing. And I was thinking it does feel like a process of getting yourself off your mind, like getting out of the way to liberate yourself. Get yourself out of the way to liberate yourself. Um, but really this free feeling around when there's no stakes, there's nothing riding on this creative expression. It's just this playful exchange it's like a dialogue with the universe. It's like, hey, here's what I got. What do you got?
You might be expecting this podcast to discuss hot baths, meditation techniques, and breathing exercises. But really, those are only just pressure releases, and they don't fix the true cause. The true issue is a contracted mind. And a contracted mind creates stress, upset, frustration, and impatience. A relaxed mind creates inspiration, connection, fresh ideas, and solutions to intractable problems. We're going to explore how you can relax into presence. This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. We have so much crap around creativity. Like it's this sludge in the engine. And I'm going to be talking with my guest today about unencumbered creativity. That just sounds nice. Like it sounds really amazing. My guest today is Aila Coats, and she is a spiritual psychologist. She started meditating when she was 12 and studying spiritual texts over the past 30 years. Her private practice includes teens, young adults, and families, as well as coaches, entrepreneurs, and creatives. She also runs a coaching school for professional coaches. She published a book, so she's a published author. Fancy. She published the book Coaching Teens Well, a way of being with teens and their parents. So welcome, Aila. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here. I love the topic.
Yeah, well, you sparked it definitely because you were talking about how you have been this broken record around creating in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we can just kind of gum up the process of it. And you were talking about how when we create from a space of safety,
Mm-hmm.
from a space of wholeness, really within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that it is gives us this gift of free expression.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yes. When you were saying that, I was thinking about children and just how unleashed they are in their creativity. And they, in my world with my three children, what I witness in them is they're not encumbered with all of their thinking around, is it going to be good enough? What's it going to mean if it doesn't turn out well? If this Lego castle doesn't go the way I want, I will never build Legos again. They don't have any of that going on. So it's just play, and it's constant too. There's no burnout. There's no like, they're not overwhelmed with the experience. It's very it's like this constant river flowing. And I feel like that river's flowing through all of us all the time. And we really can like gum it up with debris of this like real unnecessary these unnecessary ideas about what it means if our creation doesn't go well, or if it doesn't meet our expectations, if it doesn't do what we think it should do out there in the world. Writing a book, that was a real fun creation of constantly letting go of my attachment to it and just letting it flow through, and being unattached to what it does once it's released into the sphere, and knowing it has no bearings on my worth. Like you said initially, I am inherently safe, and we all are. We have this home base in us that feels nice to be in, whether we're a published author or have never written anything. Like, we're safe, we're whole, we're complete. We don't need these things that we put energy toward to do that for us. And I think we get confused at times and tangled up in there.
We can create mental tension around it. And so we'll be discussing how releasing mental tension helps you to unleash your creativity. And I think one of the great things about this is that creativity just feels good. Like, I don't think that there's anybody who has been in the flow of creativity and been like, you know what, I really hate this. Let's not have any more of that. Like you said, we just naturally do it as kids.
Mm-hmm.
But
Totally.
we can make it a chore. Like, we can come at it in a way that is unhelpful and unproductive and takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
And like what you were saying was, a lot of the times when we're doing that, we're creating in order to.
Mm-hmm.
We have this end result, we have this goal in mind, we have this finished product that needs to be a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a vision in our heads of this perfect thing. Just like, oh my gosh. And then when you translate, was really creativity is the act of translation.
Mm-hmm.
It is taking something from an insubstantial place of thought and ideas and translating it into this world of form. It's never going to be the same. It's always going to be different from what we had in our heads. And that has to be okay.
Well, yeah, it feels better when it's okay, when we let that be okay. Like, there's less tension in that when we are allowing it to be different than we thought. And I think it comes from having some faith or some trust that if it's different than we thought, it's okay. Like, we're okay. Life will be okay. I was thinking about it. I work with a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs who are creating for survival. for their livelihood. They're, and even with artists I've worked with, it's like they're creating with a hope that this will fund my life. And me too. Me too. I'm creating very, I love the work I do and it does fund my life. And when I forget that life is infinitely creative, like any idea I have that I want to put into motion as a coach or a healer, like any workshop or book or just the way that I might go about coaching people, any idea I put into motion with this hope that I hope that this does create some money for my life. If I can do it from the space of like, here's my best guess at what I think will work and what will serve people, and I'm gonna move forward and see what happens, knowing that if it's not this, there's another creative idea coming right behind it. Like it's endless. So I don't have to grip onto like this precious idea that this one workshop or this one coaching program or this one book or this one painting has to do anything for me. If I'm up for being in the game of continuous creation, I don't have to grip. I don't have to hold on to anything. And I'm quicker to get into the flow with it when I really appreciate that if something, let's just say, quote unquote, fails, it has no bearing on whether or not I'm a failure or I'm good enough. It's just this creation is creating this outcome. It's different than what I need. So let me go back into the field of infinite intelligence and grab onto another idea and let it do something. And let's see what it does. Failure is actually, it's it becomes irrelevant if I'm willing to stay in the flow. If I'm willing to stay in the flow and out of the mental, I want to say cluster F of what does it mean if it doesn't do what I think it should do? Or what if this thing doesn't create the money that I thought it would? If I stay out of that whole ball of wax and just into, oh, here's an outcome. Didn't quite hit the mark for what I need in my bank account right now. Let me just pull out something else. Let me stay in the flow of creativity and learn as I go. It feels like a little tangent I just went on. I hope that that it's helpful in some way.
No, how you were talking about failure is super important. And I loved the idea of continuous creation too. It was beautiful. I want to pick up on something around the idea of failure, and that's that it is an idea, that it's a concept, that it was learned. Like kids, when they're first walking, they don't fall down and say, "Oh, I failed."
Enough of that.
Yeah, whatever. Guess walking's not for me. They get back up and they have unencumbered themselves, or they are unencumbered. It's not through anything they did, but that we can encumber ourselves over time through life by really learning these concepts that aren't really real things. Like we learned the idea of failure and what's perfect and what's not perfect, and what's good and what's not good. And of course, there is the reality of, hey, this didn't bring enough money, literally money, into my bank account. The numbers don't match up. Okay. But there's nothing on that. And especially there, it's disconnected from who I am. Because it is so easy for us to innocently connect our use of creativity to who we think we are. And when we do that, there is struggle and pain and heartache, and we're less likely to create. We really are.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I think less likely to create and potentially just less expressed, less, um, I feel like along the lines with the awareness that failure is this concept that we've learned, it's not real. It's it's a judgmental perception of a neutral moment. Like it's um neutral evaluation is a really powerful thing to practice, to just see it all as like, wow, here's something I created. Look at that. There's nothing inherently good or bad in that either. And I was thinking the other thing that I feel like um, we've accidentally learned is, or that we've taken on as like a truth, is that, how do I want to say it? That we should be consuming. We should be always the always learning so that we're good enough and we know enough before we let ourselves be the givers, the expressors, the creators. And it's almost like a habit to get out of, that I have to prepare and I have to perfect something in here before I let this wave of constant inspiration, since we were children, to create and express and contribute. That somehow there's that mistaken understanding in there, that I have to become good enough in some way before I let myself express and share and contribute and serve. And I feel like letting go of that altogether, that it's like right now, today, you have something you want to create and express and share in a way you want to serve, go do it. Do that thing. Go do it, because you are enough right now. Like you are creating, we're all creating from this, the essence of who we all are, which is, in my world, it's like infinite wisdom, infinite creativity, completely lovable, completely intact as we are, needing nothing more added on to like reinforce that's already there. So we're like buckets of goodness, often just holding it all in. Wondering, is it good enough? Yeah.
And we have this story that we have to be a certain way in order to create. There has to be a certain space in our physical world or our mental world. The stars have to be in alignment in some way. Let me check my star chart. Let me see. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't be creative today. The Jupiter is not aligned, and I'm being a little glib. I'm being a little.
No, I agree with you. I'm sure I am controlled in some way by the stars, but maybe not. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're letting it limit us, ourselves, and our expression, because we think that it has to be a certain way or it has to feel a certain way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that is so limiting. We have this very popular book by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi that talks about flow. And you say, now there's this, oh my gosh, there's this state of flow that feels this certain way or has to be this certain way. And what if that's limiting us too? That we can create when we're not feeling that.
Yes.
We can create when we're not in flow.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
We don't have to like get into the perfect state in order to do that.
Yes.
Now, I didn't know this. So I thought that I needed to do all of the right things. I needed to have the perfect morning routine. I needed to do yoga and qigong and tai chi and affirmations and a positive, energizing playlist. And I didn't know just how powerful that creative energy of the universe is that is flowing through me. And I thought that I needed to define it in a certain way. And when I started to let go of that, I can create. And it's easeful. It's a lot more easeful. We don't have as much around it.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. You mentioned Steve Chandler earlier, and he's been a coach, mentor of mine for many years. And I just can't listen to him enough share about this stuff around. I once asked him in a coaching session, he's the author of like 60 books,
Mhm.
really amazing books, right? I once asked him, or I said to him, like, gosh, Steve, you must really love writing. And he's like, mm, no. I was like, whoa, really? And he's like, well, no, here's what it is. Like I have an idea that's coming through. So I honor that and I create time for it to come through. I create the space. Sorry. I create the space in my calendar, whether I feel like it or not. I'm gonna sit down and really know that inspiration to write often comes once I'm writing and not before. Not before. And that changed my world. Like really seeing that I think our thoughts can really hijack a lot of our, they can look so real. They can look so real that, oh yeah, I really shouldn't write. I don't feel like writing. I'm not in a good mood. I didn't sleep well last night. There's lots of reasons. And I love what you said of like, what if none of that really matters?
Mm.
And my role, if I have one here, is to just take the risk that I'm going to sit down and I won't be met by the infinite creative intelligence of the universe flowing through. Maybe I won't, but maybe I will. Maybe I will. And really my book is so sillily unnecessarily long. It's like 400 pages, but I couldn't stop. And really I wrote this book kind of testing out Steve's theory or what Steve's system, I'll say. And I was in a real funk for a little period of time. I was really low. I had a lot on my mind. And I had this like 20-minute drive to my office from my house. And I had, very young children. I still have very young children, but they were younger. And I was driving to my office and I was just like a basket case in my mind. And I wasn't getting anywhere. I was trying to work through my feelings and my thoughts. I was trying to get to a nicer feeling, and I just wasn't. I was in a really tough feeling for this period of time. And I thought, well, maybe I can write. Maybe I can write from this space. Let's see. And I had this voice recorder and I'd pull it out and I'd think about my book and I'd think about the people that I want to help through my book. And I would just decide to try it out. Like, will anything come out of me in this very funky container that it doesn't seem right in any way? It's not 5:30 in the morning and I haven't just meditated for an hour. Will it work at 10:15 on a Tuesday while I'm kind of mad at the world? Let's see. And this whole book really was created through practicing that of like, can I tap into this energy anytime, no matter what I'm thinking, and see what happens. And I mean, it was a really good experiment to run.
Mm. Well, and I also like that it sounds like you came to it with this curiosity. You weren't like, I am going to tap into the creativity now. Let me tap into it. From this low place, we're going to make it work. But it was instead you were curious and you said, is it possible? Is it available to me even when I'm not feeling in my best, even if I'm out of sorts? There's you had mentioned George Pransky. I love the relationship handbook, and he talks about how you can have these conversations with people, and you want to avoid the spiraling.
Yes, yes.
So you start the conversation and you check in 10 minutes. Is it feeling better or is it feeling way worse and we're spiraling? And what if we approached creativity that way? And instead of thinking, oh, I have to get it to be the right state, what if we started and then checked in 10 minutes and said, okay, am I feeling a little bit more flow? And if you are, heck yeah, keep going. And if you're angry and frustrated and about to throw whatever it is that you're working on out the window, then maybe take a break. Like it's not, I don't think that you're going to be served by shoving it forward, but it is important to go in with a curious spirit and see what's there and see what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The thing that came to mind as you were talking, and it's taken me a long time to see this, but the more I see it, the freer I feel. And it's really that, like, it's all optional. I mean, I don't know how to say that in a better way, but it's like I think that we create all this made up kind of tension inside when we start thinking that it's required. Like I have to do this thing, or I again kind of that it's like either on the front end of creation or on the back end of like I have to do this thing. It must happen. I for whatever reason, there's like an urgency, or on the other end of like now that I've done this thing, it has to do this thing, or I have to do it again, or there's this made up kind of ideas about what should happen. And the truth is right here in my life, it's like it's all optional where I mean with children who I'm so sorry if you can hear them. There are things that are required. I want to feed those children. I want that. I want to feed them today, and I want to help them go to sleep when they're tired. Other than that kind of absolute guaranteed commitment, it's all optional. I don't know. I used to just live in a world where I had an idea that was like, I should do this thing. And it became like, it almost felt like life or death. I have to do it and it has to be great or else. I don't know what else, but I think that's something that just really put a damper on a lot of what would otherwise have been a joyful creation in a real like pleasurable way of doing work. My work feels like just an expression of creativity all the time, but a way of doing work. Yeah.
When we can create from a place of fear, where if we think that we are not enough, which I want to let everybody know that that is not true. That is just a thought that is lying to you when you think that.
Yes.
But of course I've thought that before. So I'm going to say that it's a very human thing. It's a very human thing.
For sure.
It
Yes.
does happen. But if you think that, and then you come from this other place of, okay, well, I'm going to fix that. And I'm going to fix it by creating something that proves that I'm good enough, that I'm okay.
Yeah.
that is one form of creation. And it is tinged with fear.
Yeah.
Whatever comes from that will have that flavor. Even if it's amazing, even if you've done it, again and again, or if you've pushed yourself to do it, but there is this natural joy, I think, that we have in creation, that if we let go of the fear, if we see through it, if we understand that it's just telling me that I'm in my head about whatever it is, and I'm making up a story about how this is going to make it better, and I'm okay, we see that. I think it gives us more freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love what you're saying. It feels very nice. Like, no, keep talking.
More.
Uh,
Well,
oh, go ahead. Mhm.
and maybe I'll add to it that this is one of the funny things. This is the irony. You're always using your creativity.
Mhm.
Always. But we can use it in a way that hurts us. We can use it to worry, to fear. We can use it to make up a whole bunch of stories that haven't happened yet, or stories about our past that aren't reality now. They're just memories carried through time. And we can use our creativity in that way, where we once used it as kids for this expression and this beauty and just this curiosity of what's possible and what can I do and and what can I explore. And now we're using it to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. When you were talking, I was thinking again about sort of some of the common conditioning around, uh, kind of goes back to the failure conversation, but just kind of misunderstanding that um, it's like creativity is our right. It's like it's not even just our right, it's what we're doing all the time. It's like I'm literally creating every moment of my day in visible and invisible ways. Um, but thought is a real creative tool. Thought is really magical in this way that it can be used to create really beautiful feelings and perceptions. Um, but I was thinking about the act of actual creation with like a physical product, or I picked up a pen. It's like something like that I think it's so helpful to get out of this idea that we're being graded, or that we're being like that there's some evaluation always going on, and to get into that spirit of I might create out of anger or frustration, or I might create a real sometimes with my husband we joke around when we are trying to parent our three little kids, and one of us is doing it and it doesn't go very well, and then like the dust settles and my husband and I will talk and be like, wow, I really created a big mess right there. Like even that's an act of creation, and to be a little bit neutral about it, about whatever the thing is, that there's no need to evaluate, or like to place a judgment on every way, all of it. And it can feel so freeing to just like almost like observe it, just observe it, be like, wow, look at what I'm creating. I'm creating like chaos over there, and I'm creating so much beauty, and like people are coming together over here. Wow, none of it means anything about my value and my worth and what I ultimately am. I'm everything. I'm an expression of everything. Um, I loved what you were saying a moment ago, and I lost something that I wanted to grab onto, but yeah, I think having a quieter mind around our relationship with our own creativity, it's very calming. It's very freeing. It's very allowing. It keeps the flow going where it's not, you don't have to worry about being criticized and judged and put into like a creativity jail. I think we put ourselves in creativity jail a lot when we're placing a grade on everything that we're up to.
And that gives ourselves grace.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah.
And I was a middle school English teacher, so I was evaluating and grading. And
I was make a joke. You were part of the problem. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I apologize. No, really, I apologize to my students.
Oh, no, joking.
We have this cultural idea that our everything that we create will be judged. And then I think what we do is that we go in and prejudge it.
Yes. Yes.
And then we'll say, well, you can't judge it because I already said that it was crap. So
Protection, a little way of protecting. Yeah.
and that stems from a fear of I'm not okay. But if and that it seems like that is the root of it. That if we can come from that grounding and really see, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay if it does well, I'm okay if it doesn't do well. Then that is a key. That is something that unlocks creativity in this more beautiful way that we can use it because we're always using it, of course.
I start almost all my coaching groups, whether it's for coaches or parents or teenagers, all these groups, I start with the Mary Oliver poem, Wild Geese. And it's just the first line, the first stanza, the whole thing is lovely, but the first line is, you do not have to be good. And we talk about it for a day or, an hour or whatever, to get in there, to look at. You don't have to be good according to your mind, according to your limited perception of what is good and bad. Because fundamentally, you are good. You are enough. You are whole. You don't have to walk around trying to prove it. You don't have to. You can. That's not even bad. You can. You can. It's all okay. Any way of doing it, any way of doing life is okay. And the thing that occurs to me is it's just a little bit funner to be a human on the earth, playing with the physical world from a place of knowing there's nothing writing on it in terms of the inherent qualities that are intact, they're not on the table. They're not like up for grabs. They're intact. They're inherent. We came in with them. Anytime we look at a little tiny itty bitty baby, it's so obvious. Like they don't need to do anything. And in fact, they are a nightmare at times to take care of. It doesn't matter. They're so lovable. They're so inconvenient and so lovable. I was just up all night with my kid last night, my 18-month-old. But it doesn't, I couldn't, that's all of us though. I love having children. I have an 8-year-old and he's so free in his expression and his creativity and so innocent. And I look at him and it's like, that's me. That's all of us. And my little baby, it's like, oh my God, that's what we are. We forget. We forget. And it's so nice to remember that we don't have to be good according to our ego-centric kind of ideas that we've created. We are inherently good and we are loved. And not everybody has that knowing, but it's there for us. I think in a quiet, unencumbered mind, we can just feel it. It's home base and it's available.
Yeah.
Mm.
I loved, there was just one thing that you said in there that I was like, oh, it was, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. You don't have to be convenient to be lovable.
Yeah.
And I'm actually interested in the word convenient there because I think a lot of us are people pleasers. I know I will raise my hand.
Sure, me too. Yes, yes.
And
Recovering.
recovering. And our goal is to be convenient for other people. Oh my gosh, yes.
And agreeable.
And convenient and agreeable. And if we can kind of let that go and say, okay, that's not connected with my lovability. It's not connected with the source of who I am. It's not connected with the wholeness. Yeah. And you are also speaking a little bit to how there's almost this spiritual perfection, a spiritual perfection that goes beyond our ego mind. Because our ego mind can kind of make up what it thinks perfection is. And then, of course, there's nothing that's ever perfect to the ego mind. And so it's this battle of kind of the ego creating this giant goal that's never reachable. But when we relax that, there's a spiritual perfection. There's a perfection in the moment. Yeah. That's there if we just look in its direction. Mm-hmm. But most of the time we're just crowding our own minds with the not good enough, this is bad, not perfect. Yeah. The judgments that you were talking about. And and you don't have to get rid of the judgments. That's not what we're talking about here. You can't. In fact, the more you try to push them away, it gives them energy. But you can find a quiet mind, like you talked about, an inner space it's a very expansive inner space, and those thoughts can exist within it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I love this. When you were talking, it made me think of nature. But it's so obvious with nature that the perfection of it all, and the insanity, the wild, the rough and tumble. I can't watch those nature shows where there's little animals walking around. I get all attached to the little cute mouse, and then it gets eaten by a fox. I'm like, oh gosh. And then the fox is all cute and lovely and it gets eaten by a coyote. Oh my gosh, nature is so wild and intense and intelligent and smart in this profound way where I wouldn't want nature to be tame. My ego wants everything to be contained and tame and perfectly organized, and to get into this, just to look in the direction of like, what if I'm nature? Obviously I'm nature, like that's what we are, we're a part of nature, but what if I am, can I love myself? I happen to love nature, I live in the forest, but can I love myself like I love nature, like wild and free? My children have just like blown the top off of this one of how unconditionally can I love the wild and free nature that's running through my house, naked and covered in paint? Like how, or the inconvenience of their expression, or how, and even to love my own reactions. Like I am not, to not even love it, but to accept it and honor it and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed right now. And I'm witnessing that. And then I'm nature. I'm complex. I'm full of all of the colors, all the feelings, all the shades. Um, it's a different, I used to have a real hierarchy of like being loving and patient is the best and only way I should be. And really having kids, it just flipped it all around where it's like love, compassion. It's the same energy. It's made of the same stuff as frustration and fear and anger. It's made of the same content. It's made of the same spiritual energy in my mind, that it comes from the same nature. And the more I'm open to embracing the whole, the whole enchilada and not just the little pieces that I like, wow, like it's way more interesting. It's way more enjoyable. It's way more unpredictable too, which is really fun. It's really creative. Yeah. Hmm.
I love that you brought up nature there too, because like there's no such thing as a bad tree. Like, oh
Right.
man, that's a bad tree. That's a, nah.
Something
And
really messed up on that
I
one.
know, come on. Well, I don't know what the seed was thinking. It,
That's so good. Yeah.
it no, nature just grows as it will in the way that makes the most sense. And we can follow that too. And I love that it doesn't have to be all us. Like, like it's the difference between like planting a few flowers in your garden and manicuring it and making it perfect. And that can create a sense of beauty. But there's something else about just this volume of like a field of wildflowers.
Unfurrowed.
Yeah, it's uninhibited. It is wild and expressive, and it's growing sideways in some areas, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay if we grow sideways in some areas, because like you said, we are nature. We are the same energy. We just have a whole bunch of thinking that can kind of block it
Yeah.
and kind of create a stopper on
Mm.
this infinite flow. And it's the cool thing about it is that it's infinite potential.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that every single creative idea is going to be expressed, but it's an infinite flow, it's an infinite potential. There are infinite manifestations that can come through.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, when you said the thing of it can be like a stopper, what I got though was like, and doesn't nature just find a way anyway? I had this image of like the flower, the little sunflower, the dandelion coming up through the cement.
Mhm.
It's like, I think this conversation, in my mind, it's like, I think my hope would be that it's like, just maybe don't cement over, go away anyway. Like you are creating right now. And I think that's cool to look at, that we're creating in like macro and micro and invisible and visible ways all the time. Um, and it's nice to get out of the way too. It's nice to just what if we don't have so many rules about how it should look. And I do think that unencumbered creativity really gets going, tapping into this awareness that like my creativity is an expression of it's kind of like the tree is an expression of the infinite intelligence, and the flower and the acorn and the butterfly and the horse and the apple, and it's like it's all this, just this expression. None of it defines the creator or like the source, let's say. None of it defines it. None of it, like, if an apple seed doesn't come into fruition, it's not like, oh, no more apples, sorry. It doesn't take it personally. Nature doesn't take it personally. It's like, well, let's throw 25,000 more seeds out. No problem.
So
Yeah,
one of them's gonna sprout.
yeah, I
Yeah.
got seeds. You need apples? I got seeds.
Yeah. It was funny. I was just talking with a client about this. That the nature doesn't care. It doesn't have anything on it. And it it's very creative and it'll try things out. Like it's like, can I grow here?
Right,
Can
right.
I grow here? Oh, I can't grow here? Okay, can I grow here? How
Yes.
about now?
Yeah.
How about now back here? How about
Good. Yeah.
and it will continue on like that. And the other thing that came to me was that we can only ever create from this present moment.
Yeah.
It's the platform. And I had this thought of it's immovable. It's not
Hmm.
moving. Life is flowing. Thoughts are coming in and out. Creativity is flowing. It's moving. But this present moment is here. It's not moving. And it can be the base from which our creativity springs. And it is no matter what.
Mhm.
We can create if and maybe that's what mindfulness is, and everybody's like, well, pay attention to the present moment. But not because you are always in the present moment. You can't not be. But there's something that's special that happens when you bring an unfocused gaze to the present moment. Like no, you can't focus too hard. You can't be like, okay, I'm on the present moment. Okay, now it's the present moment. Okay, that's not how it works. But you can come to it from a place of kind of a leaning back, but engaging with it, and a lean back engagement, if that makes sense. And that is when our creativity can explode. And I just am envisioning like sparkles and colors going every which way.
Mm.
I I sent out an email recently, and at the top of it, I found this picture. And I was like, well, in my emails, I'm like, spark your insights. And like, this picture is this match, and there's this rainbow behind it of like sparkles. And like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect picture for me. Like, are you kidding me? This is my picture. And I just think that that's there. We just have to see.
Yeah. Yes. I think one way of tapping into it, I mean, there's lots of ways, but when you were just talking, I was like, oh, it's like uncorking. It's like uncorking a champagne bottle or whatever. It's like this uncorking. And I was thinking it does feel like a process of getting yourself off your mind, like getting out of the way to liberate yourself. Get yourself out of the way to liberate yourself. Um, but really this this free feeling around when there's no stakes, there's nothing riding on this creative expression. It's just this playful exchange it's like a dialogue with the universe. It's like, hey, here's what I got. What do you got? It's a different, for me, again, writing my book, I didn't really write it. I had to break all the rules around what writing a book was supposed to look like. But it was just this way of like, can I get out of my rumination and out of this like habit of trying to solve things with my mind and just I know this is important, but can I just set it aside and be in the world kind of how I want to be right now? Like, can I just decide I want to be creating? I want to be expressing and sharing and serving. And I used to just wait until I don't know what, all done inside, like all perfect, all clear.
Bing! Oh, okay, okay, now I can create.
Yeah. Yeah. To just appreciate like that for me now I see it as it was like living in a case of mistaken identity. Like I have to fix myself and solve all my problems and I'm totally completely identifying with this really like temporary self it's not rooted in anything real. It's just all thought created problems, thought created identity issues, like all this stuff. And when I could just shift over to be like, what does my heart want to share? What is my soul here to express? Like, how do I want to make a difference? My God, I feel like I'm tapping into the true self, the essential nature that again is just that source of like the fireworks and the beautiful rainbows of light. And I do feel like that's on offer for all of us, but it might be like this conscious, for me, it was this conscious shifting out of this misidentification process and of identifying with this idea of brokenness or needing fixing and just getting more into like, okay, maybe not. How about what's over here? What's happening over here right now? This place that is just so overflowing with inspiration that I'm about to burst. Can I give this some airtime in my life too? Like, how about uncorking over here and see? This stuff handled itself too. That's like the comedy to me. It's taking my mind off of these really important, dire, urgent issues. They solved themselves. It was such a misunderstanding around how where problems are created from and how they're solved. Like yeah, to get out of that and into um a higher mind, I'll say, or like a clearer mind. This stuff really handled itself. That there's that great that quote, you can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that created it. There's that too, I think. Getting into create a creative expression of any kind consciously, I feel like it solves our day-to-day problems too. It's one way.
And too, like I love that cork analogy, because I think that we can put pressure on ourselves, and that the feeling of being corked of that pressure just means that we're corking our creativity and we're blocking the flow of it. And it's an invitation. And the good news is that the higher the pressure, the easier it is to pop out. Like it just does it by itself eventually.
Mm.
So it's just a sign. It's just a signpost. It's saying, the pressure is saying, oh, you're corking your creativity. You're corking your essential self. That's the pressure that's building up. You're feeling it.
Yeah.
And I want to have someone who's listening. If they have a struggle with creativity, if they're in their heads, if they have a lot of judgment around it, even if they think that they're not creative, if they say, well, that's great for you, but what would you say to them that would help them to be a little bit more unencumbered with their creativity?
Yeah, I'll be really honest what I would likely say, and this feels for me soothing in a way. It's like, well, you don't have to be creative or identify as being creative. There's no requirement that you do this life in any perfect way, perfect, quote unquote. So just taking that off the table to start, is I can imagine that the reason behind not necessarily expressing or creating is probably tied up in that idea too, that there's some perfect way, there's some misunderstanding that like you have to do it right or you have to be a certain way. And all of that is baloney. All of that's made up. You get to be the most uncreative, boring. You do. I mean, we do. We all do. We get to just be how we are. And that's enough. Like that has to be the starting point. There's nothing you have to do here to prove your worth or your value. And we have a lot of conditioning that might tell us otherwise. And I think it's it's a great service to ourself. It's an act of self-love to question all of that and to be that really loving, nurturing parent to ourselves. Like I love saying this to my clients, like if your 3-year-old self, if you don't have a 3-year-old, but if your 3-year-old self said, I want to go sing, you would be like, go sing. You're amazing. Go sing. Let me help you find a place to sing. Let's go sing. Like to be that way with yourself now, no matter how old you are, with whatever kind of expression, creating a coaching practice, creating a painting, creating a child, creating a relationship, any kind of creating, to be that unconditionally loving, encouraging presence to yourself can be very helpful. It can be very freeing. Inwardly to get to say, I don't care if you sound good or bad or people leave or stay, I got your back. I love you, how you are. You sing so off key and I could care less. Like, I just want you to sing if you want to sing. Like to have that kind of that kind of relationship with yourself can be helpful. That's one way in.
There are infinite doors.
Yeah. Yeah. Permission, uninhibited permission, like unreasonable permission.
Unreasonable. Be unreasonable.
Most of us think any amount of like permission is unreasonable. So I think adding in like unreasonable, over the top permission to share, to shine, to be seen, to be heard, to express, to serve, like just unleashed. That's what we're going for. And that's what we like. I love doing the groups I do because I encourage everybody, like, just be on each other's teams here, like unreasonable support of each other, living in this way of self-liberation, freeing the creative geniuses in all of us.
I love that. Well, Aila, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was such a pleasure. And I know that people are going to listen to this and they're going to want to reach out to you and they're going to be like, well, how can I access more creativity? How can they reach out to you and connect with you?
My email is the best way. It's ailahale@yahoo.com. I have a website. It's not the same as my email, so you're welcome. I'm inconvenient. What can I say? My website, there's a form on there to fill out. I do respond to everything. Yeah.
Great. Well, I know that creativity is something that we kind of miss from being a kid, and it's so good to reconnect with it in any way as an adult. And you're never too old for creativity. I just want everybody to hear that. Like, you don't outgrow that creative essence.
Yeah. Totally. Thank you so much, Rich. This was really fun. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Such a pleasure. And we will see you next time.
Good. Thank you.
This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. I'm on a mission to help people release their mental tension because I know that it helps them to be more capable, creative, and compassionate human beings. And I need your help. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like more resources, visit richliferealization.com. Your vibrant life is a single thought away.